if there is no more question, let's move on to the next part, where I am going to write a code from the scratch, and then I'm going to remove all these things. We don't need these things. We only need the library, right? So I'm keeping the library here, and then I'm going to create a new HTML file and JavaScript file for creating a basic shape. So one of the most important thing for this part is how to use shader, right? So if you saw what we had for our examples, the hello point one.javascript and color point.javascript, they're actually using vertex and fragment shader for drawing their shapes or the points. So we are going to see how we can use shader for creating a very simple basic WebGL code. So after we are done, you will see there will be a single triangle on the screen, but the triangle will not be drawn using some built-in function. Rather, we'll use WebGL and we'll implement all the drawing feature from the scratch. And then I will add a simple slider to the screen and show you how to use that slider to maybe change color or something. So let's start with that. I'm going to go here. It is not here, so I am not going to save. I'm going to add the folder. I believe we are using this lab1 folder. So if I select that, you can see my libraries are already here. So I'm going to create a new file, and then not in the lib, I'm going to create a new file outside, and I'm going to name assignment1.html. And then in the HTML file, I'm going to create the basic HTML part first. So HTML. We're going to finish the HTML. And inside that, first thing is we'll have this head. And let's change the head first. Then we'll have our body. In the body, we'll write our code later, but let's first finish the code. Here. Okay. So let's add the component for head and the body first. So we need a title. So the title assignment 1. Then you can have we'll have other things, but for now let's have only the title. And then let's go and create the body. So in the body, first what I'm going to do in the body, I'm going to create a canvas, right? So our first requirement here to create this canvas where we'll have all our graphics shown. So we are going to go ahead and create this canvas. And then we need an ID for the canvas, and I can use, so this canvas is going to be used for WebGL, so I'm going to name it WebGL. You can have a different name, it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to define the width of the canvas and the height of the canvas. So width is 400. You can have a larger one depending on your preference, but I will go with 400. And then I'm going to finish the canvas definition here. Then the tag. So here we go. Inside that, just in case the browser is not supported for WebGL, you can have this message. So this is something the book is using all their code. This is more like an error message, right? Okay, so if I try to run this and let's see what happened. So you will not see anything at all, right? But is that true? Do we have the canvas here? We have this invisible canvas here. So if I go to the inspect or Control Shift J for Windows, then if I go to the elements, you'll see actually I can inspect each of the elements here, right? So if I go to the canvas, you see it is showing this canvas is WebGL canvas. The name of the canvas is WebGL. It is 400 by 400. So you can inspect each of the elements here. Let's go back to our code and continue writing our code. So we are going to have our JavaScript part that will have our WebGL part of the code. So we all know how to add the JavaScript part. So we have to import the source code for the JavaScript, right? So I'm going to do the script, and I'm not mentioning the type, just source. Then I want to add another file that is going to be assignment1.js. I'll have to create the file, but for now I'm just importing the file. So script, but we do not have the file here, right? So it will, if I try to run this, it will just throw me an error. That's why I am going to create a new file, and I'm going to call this one assignment1.js, which is a blank file, right? So what is the first thing I should have in the file? I need a main function. So I'm going to write a function, and then the name of the function is going to be main. Inside the function, let's just do something, maybe log. Fix that as well. Okay. And then in the HTML part, I need to load the main function. So the body, I'm going to load this using this onload main, which is pretty much what you did in the last code. So nothing new. So if the main function is loaded, it should show me this line in the console, and let's see if it works or not. So it is obviously working, right? So we are good so far. Okay. So now I think I'm mostly okay with this HTML part of the code. And as I mentioned, for some future use, I already had this library directory here. And this library directory had the files that I'm going to use. We are not going to use this matrix for now, but I can always import that. So let's go ahead and import all the files from there. So I'm going to have this copied, and then the sources are going to be lib and each of the files inside lib. So .js, then the rest of them like this. So this one is WebGL. Then we have this WebGL debug. So I think now I have all the necessary files added here, just to make sure that I have no typos. I can refresh this. It is working fine. So there is no problem with loading the files. Okay, so at this point, we want to start working on our WebGL code. So let me take a quick look at the chat. So there is a question on the chat. Do you have to import scripts in head and not the body? So both works. If you look at the book code, I think they are importing the functions in the body. Let me double check. Let's take a look at maybe hello point. So what they are doing. So they are importing in the body. But I feel that importing that in the head is cleaner. It doesn't matter for most of the cases. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can follow the way I'm doing it. Yeah, so this is just cleaner and better code management. I cannot strongly tell you to do that because the book is doing the opposite thing. So they're having this code inside their HTML. So in their defense, I can say the HTML file is going to be pretty simple, right? For you see, in the next chapters, the book will have much complex code, but the HTML is most of the case pretty straightforward. But for our case, our HTML file will have more controls like scroll bars, like this buttons, other user interface components. So I think having the script on the head is cleaner for our purpose. But yeah, there is no strong preference. Okay, let's go back to the place where we are working. So far we have this, and then we are good so far. I was going to add the JavaScript part in our code, right? Okay, so I have this function main. Then I need to have our canvas imported here because we are going to draw everything on the canvas. So we have the canvas defined here. We have this ID. We're going to use this ID to import this canvas or add this canvas in this piece of code. So what I'm going to do, this is just like the previous assignment 0. I'm going to create a variable called canvas, and then I'm going to get the document, get element by ID. We have the ID of our canvas, which is WebGL. And then once the canvas is here, I'm going to create another variable called GL, and then I'm going to get the WebGL context from the canvas. So this is going to be the variable that we're going to use for drawing all the component on the canvas. So we have the canvas, then we have get WebGL component, WebGL context. From this variable canvas, right? So if this is working fine, then we will not have any problem running this. So this is so far working fine. We can do one more thing to double check. We can try to print the variable GL and see what we have. So I'm going to do a console log, and then inside that I'm going to print the GL. Okay. So if I refresh, you can see it is printing something about the WebGL canvas, the canvas that is named WebGL. If I expand that, you'll see it has all the variables and also the functions that can be used for WebGL. So we are going to use a lot of these functions. You'll see vertex attribute, then uniform variable connection, and other stuff. We'll see step by step how each of the functions or this value are going to be used. So for now, let's change this line a bit. We can have this. This is fine. We can leave this here. But once we are importing this GL, or we are adding the GL to our JavaScript file, we need to make sure that it is working properly. So you'll see this is going to be a very common thing later. We'll always check if the variable was working properly and what we are reading is a valid value. So we are going to throw here this error if not GL. Then we are going to say something, right? And what is that? We're going to say console log. You can say fail to get GL, just to make sure that context was working properly. Okay. And then we are going to return -1. For all of the error block, we're going to do this, right? And let me do a quick refresh. So there is no error. That means we are successfully reading our canvas here, which is still invisible. Okay. So any questions so far? All right. So let's continue. And then what I'm going to do, first thing is I'm going to clear the background of the canvas with some color, right? So I'm going to use GL. You did implement a clear function in the assignment 0, so this is similar. We're going to use this clear color, and then let's use some color. So this value of the color is RGB and alpha. We know that. So this is our red, then green, then blue, and the final value is the alpha value. So the alpha is going to be 1. So if I want my background maybe as blue, I can have this. And if I refresh, nothing will happen, right? Because we didn't still use the color. We just assigned the clear color. Now we are going to use the color to clear the canvas. So there is this macro variable that is called color buffer bit. That actually does the real work. So if we run it now, you see the background as the blue. So you can define any clear color you want. It can be green, it can be blue. So if I change it to green, the background will change to green, right? And now we have this well-defined canvas. We can add other UI components here, like the button, the sliders, and other stuff. So since our demo here is showing a black background, I'm going to go with black, which is no color, right? So white is all color, black is no color. So setting up all the colors as 0. So my RGB is 0, and my background is going to be black. So we are good so far with all the setup, and we have this canvas where we are going to draw our objects. So before moving on to the next part, any questions so far?